What's up guys, welcome to my YouTube channel Dual Purpose. If this is your first time here, my name is Latoya and you're watching another episode of Dual Purpose Conversations, where I interview amazing people from around the world who will share their personal testimonies. We're also covering self-care, self-love, and faith and business. So in today's video, I will be interviewing the lovely Natalie, who will be talking to us about self-love before marriage. How important is it to make sure you love yourself before you get married? So if you are married, comment below, let us know, did you go on a self-love journey before you got married? And also any tips that you may have for those who are single and want to get married. Also, comment below if there are any topics that you would specifically like for us to cover, and we will take a look at your comments. If you would like to be featured on the show, there's an email address in the description of this video. Email us and a member of the Dual Purpose team will be in touch with you. Also, if you would like to sign up for our monthly devotional, there's a link in the description of this video. Sign up on our website and we will make sure that you are included every time we send out our monthly mailings. So let's get into the video. Welcome to the show, Natalie. Thank you so much for joining us today. And just before we get into today's topic, would you mind just telling us a little bit about yourself, who you are, what you do, and then we'll get into the interview.
Yeah, of course. So I'm Natalie. I am 35. I am all about children. I love children. I'm a part of my children's ministry and my local church. I studied education and early years at uni, so I have a BA honours in that. I just love everything about children. I think they're great. I love to see them learn, develop, and grow. Um, yeah, I'm just about fun as well. So I think
Yes, you are. So
I'm
we
as crazy as
realized the other, sorry,
I'm as crazy as the children are, so I think this is why we get on so well.
I can vouch for that. So we realized the other day, we've known each other when we first met, probably more than 20 years ago, right?
Okay, girl, like, yeah.
I know, we
20
just,
years.
it makes me feel old too. But yes, I've known you for quite a long time. And yes, you're crazy. But but I just thought you would be the perfect person for today's topic because you are now married.
I
How
am.
old were you when you get married? When you got married?
Um, 31 when I got married.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
And
we'll
that
talk.
was crazy because
Mhm,
I would have been married way before then, like I guess a lot of us do, because we set
mhm,
ourselves these crazy timelines, which sometimes are very unrealistic. But
mhm.
yeah, 31.
Okay, so we'll talk about that a little bit more. But yeah, I just thought you'd be perfect for this topic because it's all about self-love before you get married. I didn't want to call it while waiting for a husband because I don't think that we should be waiting to
That's
be
right.
found or waiting for a husband. We should be living our best life even
That's
while
it.
we are single. And just maximizing that single season. But yeah, so you got married in what some people would call later years. I just think whenever it happens, it happens.
You know?
So, so yeah, I want to talk about self-love though, because I think it's a topic that is sometimes overlooked within the church predominantly. We know what the Bible says and that we're fearfully and wonderfully made, and we know that Jesus loves us, but sometimes we haven't been taught how to love ourselves. And I think sometimes people go into relationships and marriages from a place of brokenness because they don't know how to love themselves. So they don't know what love looks like, and they get into horrendous relationships that would have probably never happened if they were whole themselves before.
Very true.
Um, so would you say that you struggled with self-love at any point throughout your life?
Um, Throughout my life, I don't know. I don't think so. I'm quite a like yeah kind of out there person, you know. And I no, well, no, tell a lie, maybe. But then I think that was like in terms of friendship groups.
Mm-hmm.
Um, because I've never been one to have like a best friend, and I thought that was kind of weird because a lot of people are like this is such and such, and she's my best friend, and he's my best friend, and like I never had that. Um, but being an only child, I was kind of, like used to kind of being by myself.
Mm-hmm.
Though I did like to be a part of the crowd, and I was like in the popular crew, so to speak, at school and stuff like that. I think just because I'm loud. Um, but yeah, I don't know if I'd say I actually struggled with self love. I think I've always loved me,
Hmm.
um, and all my kooky things about me. Um, there's a lot. Um, so yeah, I don't. It's a difficult question because the more I think about it, I think maybe there were aspects where I wasn't too sure of myself, but I don't know whether that's just as you're growing up and going through
Hmm.
that teenagey stage and where do I fit kind of thing. But yeah, I've always been down for me. Do you know what I mean? Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does make sense. And I think that's quite refreshing to hear because, by nature of what I do, I help young ladies on their Christian walk and on their journeys.
Mm,
And that is a topic that comes up. I don't know how to love myself. And I think speaking to somebody who didn't go through that, I almost want to ask you, what do you think was different between you and perhaps that young lady who doesn't know how to love herself? Do you think it was your upbringing? Was it your relationship with God? What do you think made you know how to love yourself?
um, I think probably more about my upbringing, I guess, because I didn't really come to know Christ until later on, like after I was 17, like for real, like in my 20s. Um, so I think it's probably how I was raised. I'm around a lot of strong black women. My mum's one of five sisters. They're all very strong and independent. My mum was a single parent, so I don't know whether seeing her work and how she does things and just getting on with it. I don't know whether that has had something, something to do with how I am now. I guess it has. I guess it has. Um, but yeah, my mum's very much, she gave me a lot of independence from a very early age. So maybe
Mhm,
that's what it is. Because when you have that independence, you've got to be kind of, confident enough to take the bus by yourself, whatever it is, or, be
mhm.
cooking, be in the house by yourself. Um, and I've been doing that since I was like 13, 12,
Mhm.
13. I don't know. Is that young? I felt like it was young when I was that
Not in the
age.
Caribbean home, it ain't.
Girl, I got cook. Um, but yeah, I kind of think that was kind of, I felt that was young because my friends around me
Mm,
predominantly came from a two-parent home, and yeah, they weren't doing those things. And like if I was going out with a group of friends, for an afternoon or whatever, their parents would be like, okay, what time are you coming back, where are you, blah blah blah. And my mum, I'd tell her where I was going, I'd get permission,
mhm,
whatever, and I'd go, and I'd say I'll be back at such and such time, and she wouldn't contact me until then. I think that independence had given me that confidence. I think that's what it is.
mhm. And do you think you were able to then take that independence into, was it almost like you had to be strong for yourself in so many areas that you also developed that strength within yourself to know that you had value and you had worth?
I guess so. I think when you break it down like that, you just think, oh my gosh, that's a lot, isn't it? You don't really think of it that way.
Yeah.
You just kind of get on with it.
Mhm,
But I think so, yeah.
mhm,
To know that I am able to do this, I can do this by myself, I can do this for myself.
mhm,
Um, so yeah, I guess, yeah, that's where it came from. And even then, my girlfriends in my teenage years, we were all quite independent and confident and loud. Um, So I guess the people that you surround yourself with as well, it does rub off on you. So
yeah. And I think it's interesting. You mentioned as well that you grew up in a single parent household.
yeah,
And one of the things that we find, not just in the church, but just in society in general, is that girls who grow up without that father figure in the home, even if your father is in your life, sometimes there can be an element of looking for that replacement of that love
yeah,
that is missing, or looking for love in the wrong places because
yeah.
you didn't have that male figure in the home. So I think it's interesting that even though you were in that situation, you didn't fall into the the normal statistics of looking for that love everywhere else.
It's so true. And I think a reason I put down to that is because I did um, find my local church when I was 17, and I was invited there by an ex-boyfriend. And we went together, and the bishop, well, the pastor at the time, he's now bishop, um, he's all about family. He was so loving. And there was a period of my life where I referred to him as dad for a good few years. And he gave me all of those things that I didn't realize that I was missing. And I think that has probably had a role to play in, why I didn't go, extremely to the left or extremely to the right, kind of go crazy off the rails. I mean, I did kind of go off the rails, but that's for a whole nother discussion. Um, but I think having him around was a great help. It really was. He corrected me like a father would. He praised me like a father would. He encouraged me like a father would. So, yeah, I think that had an amazing, amazing part to play.
And I think that's so important because, you know, having our father in our lives, our biological father, there's definitely a blessing that comes with that, and
Yeah,
experiences that come with that as well. But unfortunately, we live in a world where a lot of people can't say that that's their norm, that's their story. And I think what you've just mentioned about finding that man who can play that role is so, so important. And for in your case, it was your pastor, but for somebody else, it could be an uncle, it could be
mm,
somebody else within their community or within their church who is a respectable, respectable person that can actually lead and guide you in the way that a father would.
that's it. He definitely did that. Look at me now.
He did a great job. But what advice would you give to that young lady that's watching this video, who doesn't love themselves? They look in the mirror and they hate what they see. They look at TV and social media. That's a huge one.
Really.
Comparison and peer pressure and all of those things. And they just don't know how to love themselves. What advice would you give to that young lady today?
I would say no matter what it is, know that no one is you. There's something in you that only you can do. No one else can do it. You are amazing. You are fearfully and wonderfully made. Though you don't always feel like it, find that thing that you can encourage yourself with daily. Like, I've got beautiful eyes. I've got a beautiful smile. When I'm around people, they say that I make them feel happy. Um, I love to be around children or animals or whatever it is. There's something in you and you know it. um, just hold on to that and continue to like affirm yourself. Honestly, continue to affirm yourself and surround yourself with people that will affirm you positively, um, and try and stay off social media if you know that that is one thing that makes you doubt yourself and feel down, because to be honest, social media isn't real. A lot of those people that you see on Instagram, they don't really look like that. A lot of the lifestyles that they portray, they don't really have those lifestyles. I've got a lot of friends that have platforms on social media and things like that, about how they travel here, there, and everywhere. And when you go through their feed, it looks amazing, and you're like, oh, I need to go here. I'm going to quit my job and move to Bali or whatever it is. But I also know that they've traveled and they've taken all of these pictures, and now they're back at home, in Peterborough, or somewhere not exotic. Sorry if you come from Peterborough, or Milton Keynes or London, wherever it is that they are, and they're working their standard 9 to 5. They are grafting, and these pictures that you're seeing every day, every couple of hours on your feed, have been uploaded, and set to come out at a certain time. But they're doing the same mundane things that you and I are doing, and they have the same struggles. We're all human. Um, but yeah, we're all fearfully and wonderfully made, and there's something in you that only you can do. And something that the Holy Spirit said to me a while ago was that somebody is struggling because I'm not doing what it is that I've been called to do. And only you know what that is. And I just encourage you to step out in faith and do it. And if there's ever a time to do it, it's right now. Um, Look at the things that are happening in the world. People are making more money than they've ever made before. People are more successful than they've ever been before. People are engaging with far more people that they have ever engaged with before because of the current climate. So, utilize that. Do whatever it is that is in you to do, because no one can do it like you can. So just do it.
And I think that's so true. I think once you learn to love yourself, you see the value in you,
That's it.
and you realize, there's nothing wrong with saying nobody can do it like me.
You know,
And it's not it's not about being big headed. It's about knowing that your journey serves a purpose,
that's
and
it.
whatever you've been through, the good, the bad, the ugly, all of it. One day, if you allow God to take your story and use it to bless other people, He definitely will. So everything we go through, nothing is in vain. And I think
That's
the
true.
advice that you've given there is absolutely perfect. So today's topic is about self-love before marriage. Now, there are women all across this globe like, Jesus, where is he at?
I was like that. I was ready to
Um,
move to America.
okay, we won't go there. Um, but yeah, a lot of women, I think there's added pressure for women in particular, somebody said to me the other day, you're getting on in age, your eggs. I'm like, you leave my eggs alone, okay?
No,
Because the
I'm not.
Lord will restore the years. But I think there is so much pressure on women to get married by a certain age. And you mentioned that you got married at 31.
Mhm.
So, a couple of questions just based on that. So, we've spoken about the self love, but was there anything in particular that you did to prepare yourself to be a wife? Because I think our single season shouldn't be focused on one day I want to get married, one day this, one day that. That one day may never happen. I personally believe not everybody is supposed to get married. And I think if some people accepted that, they wouldn't be in the situations that they're in. But I think it's about finding out, is that in God's plan for you? Even if it's a desire of yours, is that in God's plan for your life? And I think people would live much more fulfilled lives if they learned to enjoy whatever season they're in, whether it's a single season, a season where you're not working, a season without children. Wherever we find ourselves, as the Bible says, we should learn to be content. But in that preparation to one day become a wife, was there anything in particular that you did to prepare yourself mentally, spiritually, emotionally? Did you have to go on a journey of wholeness? Talk to us about that.
Um, Again, I guess I'll go back to my church because it's awesome. Um, and it's all about family and like building people up and making them become the best version of themselves that God has ordained for us to be. And our First Lady Maddox, whoop, whoop, she is always about pouring into the young women, pouring into women in general. And, she is quick to tell you. I remember whilst I was single, she said to me, Natalie, um, the way that you get upset quickly about things, you need to deal with that. And that's what you need. You honestly need someone who's gonna like pick you up on these things and quickly. And at first, I was kind of like, "What do you mean?" But I did have a funky attitude, and my husband even said that to me. Obviously, after when we got married, he said to me, I'd watched you and I liked how you changed. So, thank you, First Lady. um, but yeah, as in terms of like a journey of wholeness, um not so much. I think with the teachings that we had, and again going back to my mom and my aunts, um they help a great deal because they are all strong women, um who do affirm each and every one of us as nieces, daughters, etc. um yeah, I think with them and with our first lady speaking into us, I think it kind of it helps you see things that you didn't already see. Um, in terms of, I think I always knew that I was going to be a wife because I've always wanted to have a family, and because of my upbringing, I knew that I wanted to be married, and have my children within marriage and remain married until death do us part, which I continue to tell my husband. Yeah, so I think I always knew that I wanted to have a family. Um, so I don't know. It's been said to me that like, oh, you were born to be a wife, you were born to be a mother. I think maybe that's down to my caring nature because I love to work with children and be around children, um, and I'm quite patient, I guess, with children. So I don't know whether um, yeah, whether that answers your question for one, um, and whether they're the things that attributed. Probably my grandma as well. She was extremely hospitable. There were always people in her home. She was always loving on people that weren't necessarily family by blood. Um, so yeah, I think I've always been around that loving environment, and I think those characteristics are what make a good wife,
Mm-hmm.
and just a good human being, to be honest.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it helps when you're a wife and these things are kind of like magnified. So yeah, I think it's a lot to do with my upbringing, and my relationship with our church and my bishop and first lady. So yeah, does that answer your question?
Yes. And I think based on what you said, you had a great role model in your bishop, but
Mm.
you're also surrounded by amazing women who have helped to nurture you to become the person that you are, the wife that you are, and the mother that you are today as well. You obviously met your husband. Where did you meet your husband?
Oh. He found me in church,
He
girl.
found you.
As Dr. Bithia says, I made myself findable. You know, I did
Oh,
the eyebrows, put
okay,
on.
talk to us about that. Talk to us about making yourself findable because, oh, Jesus, I see people. I see young ladies who are making themselves really foundable, okay? But it's too much.
Too findable.
It's it becomes desperation, and it's not cute to see. So, how do you make yourself findable in a respectable way, in a godly way, so that, I was watching something and the lady was talking about women can shoot their shot, as the saying says now.
Okay.
But she was saying that shooting your shot is not pursuing the man,
Mm,
because I'm old school. I still think a woman should be pursued by a man.
yeah.
But she was saying that shooting your shot is just making it known that you're interested. So I guess this is what you're saying. So she was saying, it could be making him aware that you're there, making him aware that you're single, but not pursuing him. And she was saying that, if a man wants you, he will make it
He will
very
let you
clear.
know.
You would not have to second guess whether or not he's interested. So yeah, talk to us about being findable in a respectful and in a godly manner.
Well, we're in church, so we got no excuse to be acceptable. Um, and no, what it was, we had a youth games night, social event, and I think everyone's together and you're all mingling. And I'm quite chatty anyway. I would like to talk to anybody. To anybody. Um, so what were we doing? I think we're like, no, before then. So we got talking because this is how long ago it was, right? Because I'd had a BlackBerry that I needed to sell, and
Wow.
I'm not great at technology. Um, and so he said to me, "Oh, do you know what? I'll help you do that." And he helped me to like sell it on eBay or something like that. And so this is how we got talking. So he was like, "Okay, what model is it, and how much do you want for it, and blah blah blah." So we were just having a general like friend conversation. And then
Mm-hmm.
after he'd sold it for me, then that's when we had this church youth event. And I remember him saying, like, "Oh, I'm going to beat you at table tennis." We're like messaging each other over WhatsApp or whatever it was. And he's like, "Yeah, I'm going to beat you over table tennis." I was like, "No, I'm going to beat you going down." Um, and then we came to the event, and it was nice because there's like loads of people there, and we're just all socializing, getting to know each other better. And we just hit it off. I think just literally on a friendship level. And I tell you, it was on a friendship level because when I first saw him, I was like, "He too short." No, because in my head I had he was like 6'4" or maybe like 6'2" at minimum. I don't even think my husband's even 6 foot. I think he's like 5'9" or something. I don't know, but he's taller than me, so I don't know what the problem is.
Praise
Um,
the Lord.
um, but yeah, so when I first saw him, I was just like, no. And it was funny because I felt like, and I know that some people say, "Oh, don't be like super spiritual," but I'm not. I actually felt like God was like, "Yeah, that's your husband," and I was like, "You got jokes." Like, no, no. Do you mean the guy behind him? Because he's taller. Um,
I
yeah.
hope
So I
he's
felt
heard this story because he's
like,
about to hear it.
yeah, no, he has. Yeah, it's fine. He's heard this story many a time.
Okay.
Um, so yeah, it was nice. Just met in church in 2010, I think. Yeah, 2010. That's when he
Okay.
started coming to our church. So maybe like 2010, 2011.
Mhm.
But yeah, we literally were just friends, like just strictly just friends. And they came to a point where we'd been on a date. Was it a date? I think it was a date, or we've been out anyway, and I was starting to like him, and so I just said, "You know what? What's going on here? Like, what is this?"
Wow.
And he's like, "What do you mean? Like, we're having dinner?" And I was like, "Yeah, but what is this?" He's like, "Well," and then we watched a movie. Because he's like that. Like he just likes to see people squirm sometimes. I was like, and then he could see I was getting frustrated. He's like, "No, no, 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 no. Like, I like you, isn't it?" I was like, "Okay, well, finally, at least you put it out there." So I was like, "Okay, cool." And then I went about my business. I was like, "Yeah, I'll catch up with you in a week."
So
Now I
talk
know.
to us, talk to us about that transition from being friends to dating to courting, to marriage, just in terms of, so obviously you called it out, what is this, what's
Yeah,
happening here? We don't have time to waste, let's face it.
you know.
Um, but was it clear from the beginning what the intentions were? I mean, obviously it's difficult to say 100% this is who I'm going to marry, because we don't know what the future holds
Yeah.
and until he proposes. And, but was it clear from the outset, were there conversations that I'm not here to waste your time, I see this leading to marriage?
Girl, exactly that. It's like you were there. It was. And I think because he's a very straightforward person, he calls a spade
Mm,
a shovel. Like, he says it as it is. And I was kind of like, okay, you know what? I don't really want to waste my time.
mm,
So like, what we doing? Like how I said to him that night, like, what we doing here? And he was like, oh, let's see how things go. Like, I would like to get married, and we had those. I think I don't know if people perceive them to be uncomfortable conversations early on,
mhm,
but I don't, because it's like, well, if this isn't going anywhere, then cool. Let's just like move it to the friend zone and
mhm.
keep moving.
Yeah.
Um, we can be friends. Friends are cool. But from the get go, we're kind of like, okay, no, this is something that I could
Mhm,
see long time. Longevity. That's the word. I can see longevity in this. Um, and yeah, we had those conversations. Like, do you want to get married? First of all,
mm,
because some people
mhm.
just assume that people want to get married, and they're like, yeah, no, I'm cool, just being your boo. Like, no, boo, boo won't put a ring on it. So, like, do you want to get married? Yes, I want to get married. Cool. Would you like to have children? Yes, I'd like to have children. Cool. Do you see yourself moving out the country once you're
Mm,
married? Because this is an important question. Because my family lives
absolutely.
here in the UK, and I don't really want to be moving to Timbuktu,
Mm.
where I don't know nobody. And he was like, no, um, I see myself living in the UK. I was like, praise Jesus. Do you see yourself living in London? Because I don't. And he was like, no, I don't. I was like, okay, we're doing well. We can move. We can move.
No, but I
Um,
think these questions are so important.
they really
And I can
are.
only speak from a woman's perspective. We like to know as much as we can know. We like to be prepared for every eventuality. We like to be organized. We like to know that we're going somewhere and not just
Mm,
on this long track to God
yeah,
knows where.
yeah.
So I think it's really important to have those conversations up front. And as you said, we can sometimes assume that everybody wants the same thing that we want. And, that's not always the case.
It's true. And if you don't ask, you ain't never gonna know. And there's no shame in it. There's no shame in it. And I think because guys are very, what I've learned in our 4 years of marriage is guys are very much, they're to the point. They don't beat around the bush. It's like, this is this, this is this, this is this. So this is why they switch off sometimes when we tell them our long, long stories, and they're just like, get to the point. Um, but yeah, so I think personally, and from speaking to my husband, that they appreciate
Mhm.
that. Like, okay,
Yeah.
let's do this, let's do this, let's do. They appreciate knowing what's that you want to know what is what, and we're
Mm.
not just because otherwise they will happily just be like dating you for ages and or courting you for ages and no.
So, just on the other side of that, then, obviously, you are now married. You've got a great husband and two beautiful children. So, on the other side of it, how important do you think it is to be friends before you enter into anything romantic?
Oh, 100%. You need to be friends. Like, I can't stress that enough. Because
Mm,
if you're not friends, where are you going? Like, what are you building on? There's no foundation. What are you doing?
mhm,
You're the foolish man building something on the sand. Like, no.
mm.
Um, yeah. So I think it's extremely important that you're friends because in marriage, like, you need to be friends. Who are you married to? Just married to some
Especially
dude,
in
like,
quarantine.
girl. Especially in quarantine. Even when he your friend, he don't get on your nerves. You're like, I don't need to see my friend every day. Go somewhere. Go to the living room. Yeah, like, yeah, quarantine.
Okay.
That's a whole nother show. Um, but yeah, no, it's crazy important because there has to be something. There has to be something, and I mean, you're friends with so many people, and you're friends with them for different reasons, right? But I guess when it comes to your spouse or your what's the word?
Perspective.
That's the word.
I got you.
Prospective. So when it comes to your spouse or your prospective spouse, there needs to be some commonality and
Hmm.
more than like fickle things because you know, you get married, you have children, children grow up and leave. What are y'all talking about? Like
Yeah.
if you're not even friends, if you
Hmm.
yeah. So you gotta be friends. And you have to find somebody who makes you laugh because marriage will make you laugh. Marriage will make you laugh. Our first lady says it all the time, like marriage is an eye opener, and I love it because she says it like, just after you got married, you might have been married for a year, and you're like, hee. She's like, marriage is an eye opener, and you hit that 1 year, 2 months, and you're like, amen, first lady, yes it is. And honestly, you know exactly what she's talking about. about.
How long have your Bishop and First Lady been married?
Oh my goodness! So they've been married for coming up to 36 years this year. It'll be.
Amazing.
It's crazy, isn't it?
I
Crazy.
love that. I love that we have these examples around us. 36 years, that's longer than I've been alive. And my Bishop and First Lady have been married for 43 years. And you just think,
Wow.
Lord have mercy. But, it's great to have these role models around us to
It
show us
really
that
is.
even in this day and age, marriage works. Christian marriages do work. So I'm
They
so
really do.
grateful. I'm so grateful that we have these amazing examples in our lives.
It's so true. 30,
So another
40 odd years? That's mad.
43 years, I know. My mind can't even, yeah.
Right?
Praise the Lord.
Wow.
But another thing, so going back to the self-care topic, so we've discovered that friendship in marriage is crucial. I'm not married yet, but I think for me, from observing and speaking to others who are, I would say, and correct me if I'm wrong, I would say that God needs to be the anchor in your marriage and the friendship needs to be that foundation.
Oh,
Stop
yes.
scaring the single people.
Jesus. No, it's so important, and I think for yourself, like before you get married, you have to make sure you have that solid relationship with God,
Hmm.
for yourself, because
Hmm.
don't think like, oh, I'm gonna get married, my husband's gonna, and he's gonna, and he's got no, like, know God for yourself first and foremost, because when you go to heaven, God ain't saying, oh, Mr. and Mrs. No,
Hmm.
he's saying Natalie,
Yeah.
come, you won. Um, so yeah, like, yeah, make sure that relationship is on point. And the great thing about Christian marriage is that when you're married and you're working on your relationship with God as individuals, the closer you get to each other.
Hmm.
The Bible talks about a cord of three folds is not easily
Yeah.
broken. And so, we are each one of those cords, the husband, the wife, and God.
Hmm.
So if we're working together to get closer to God, then ultimately we get closer and stronger together.
Hmm.
So
Yeah.
it's so important. And I'm not gonna lie, it's hard, like, because when you first get married, I personally struggled with this a lot. When we first got married, I had my way of doing my devotion and how I want to do it and the time I want to do it. Because me personally, I'm a morning person. I wake up, I'm like, yeah. My husband, he wakes up, he's like, why? And he's a night owl. So come the night time, he's like, yeah, let's do this devotion. Like, I'm ready. I'm like, boo, I'm ready for my bed. Like, no. And so that was a struggle, trying to find a time that is convenient for us both to do it. And
Hmm.
there were times where I was just like, you know what, I'm gonna do my devotion in the morning, and let's try and do something like maybe in the afternoon or something.
Mm.
Like, you have to work it out. And if married people are honest, they'll tell you that is a struggle. It
Yeah.
is a struggle. And then the other struggles, then when you have children, and obviously they wake up at like the crack of dawn, and so I'm awake early anyway. But they're sometimes awake before me. They wake me me up. God bless them.
For these
Um,
children we prayed.
yeah. So yeah, that's a whole another thing that you've got to consider. So you know what? Make sure
Mm.
your relationship with Christ is on point before you
Mm.
get married. Um, Not to say that you need to be perfect, but that you have that relationship, that you have that like schedule, that time that you spend with
Mhm.
God,
Mhm.
so that when you do get married, if it means that you go ahead and you have your devotion, and then you work out as a family when you have devotion, you and your husband, then so be it. But
Mhm.
don't be looking to rely on either your husband or your wife to be initiating everything, and like, because your relationship with God is your relationship with God.
Yeah.
um yeah, so yeah.
And I think one of the things that you touched on as well is don't look to your husband or wife or potential spouse to complete you. And I think sometimes we spoke earlier about, did you go on a journey of wholeness? And some people do need to go on that journey of wholeness, and there's nothing wrong with that. And I think that's so important so that when you get married, you're not putting this unrealistic pressure on this other person
Yeah,
to make you whole, but actually you're two whole people coming together
that's
that will
it.
create a wholesome marriage a wholesome household for your children. And I just think that's so important. So I'm really glad that you did touch on that earlier as well. Just off the back of what you said earlier, how important do you think it is to have that solid relationship with God for yourself before you get married? And obviously, I know that there are some people who may get married and they're not Christians when they get married. So they have to develop that relationship with God afterwards. But as a wife, how important is it that you have your own personal relationship with God?
It's ridiculously important because I mean, at the minute, I'm going through again the purpose of a praying wife, and in this book, it talks about how you're praying for your husband even when you don't want to, um, how you need to stand as the woman of your home, the things that you need to do. So I think the relationship with God is key, and the Holy Spirit. Like, you need that guidance. You don't know what to do. You've never been married before. Um, you've never been married to this person before, even if you have been married before. Like, you need 100% guidance. You need the Holy Spirit. um and because you're meant to be building each other up in a marriage, and so there's going to be times where you need to pray for him and he needs to hear you praying for him, and you need to affirm him, and you need to you know um just build him up in the word of God. And if you don't know the word of God, then obviously that's going to be hard. But if you've got a relationship with Christ and you're reading your word, meditating on it, reading other books as well, really help. Our bishop is always promoting marriage and relationships, and always promoting loads of different books that we can buy, lots of different materials. And that was something that my husband and I did. We got this book called Love, Sex and Marriage, I believe, by Pastor Jeremiah something. I'll find it. And that was an amazing book. I mean, there was a book copy and there was a CD um, copy as well. So what we did before we got married, like, one of us had the book and one of us had the CDs, and then we'd discuss it, and then we'd switch, and then we'd discuss it again. And that was really, really interesting. Um, and I think that helped both of us in our relationship with Christ as well, because it would touch on issues that I didn't necessarily have to discuss with him, um, but then I would maybe take to God in prayer, read more about it, research more for myself. So yeah, it's really important that you have that relationship with Christ for yourself, because, like I say, it's on that judgment day. It's not Mr. and Mrs. It's just you.
You mentioned earlier you got married at 31, and as we said, by typical church standards and even society standards,
It
people
really
think
is, yeah.
that people feel like that's too late. Tell us about a time, I think you touched on this briefly earlier, a time when you just wondered, is it ever going to happen? I've got this desire, I want a husband, I want to have a family, but, is it going to happen? What got you through that season where you were, I don't really like to use the word waiting, but, where you were single,
Mhm.
and not seeing any prospect towards this dream and this desire that you had?
Yeah. Friends, Christian friends especially. I think because they truly understand where it is that you're coming from. Whereas I did have both friendship groups. Some of my friends aren't Christian. I still have friends that aren't Christian. But there'd be certain things that I talked to them about, and certain things that I would take to my Christian friends that I knew would give me a a biblical perspective, and not just like their own opinions, which often is the best and extremely helpful. I remember going to my then youth leader and saying to her, like, honestly, I don't know if I'm ever going to get married. And I was really upset. I was kind of in tears. I was like, oh no, I don't know if I'm just meant to be happy for other people for the rest of my life, or if there's going to be a time when I'm actually going to get married, and am I just always meant to be the person that's looking after somebody else's children, or am I going to have my own children to look after? And she just said to me, you know what, Nat, when the time's right, it will happen. And she was like, just focus on you, focus on being a happy Natalie, focus on your relationship with God, focus on, living and doing all the things that you want to do now, because it may change when you get married. You don't have as much flexibility, um, which is true. Um, yeah, so she was like, work on you and get to know who you are, get to love who you are, and just enjoy the time that you have now. And I know it's so annoying when people say that, and it's always married people who say, "Oh, just enjoy your singleness." And I used to hate it as well, because when Married people telling me, I'm like, it's all well and good for you because you're married. I'm single. I don't want to hear it. But for real, like, like when you get married, um, yeah, you're accountable to somebody else, aren't you? Um, so in do those things that you want to do, like go on holidays when we can fly again. But go on holidays, enjoy the spa weekends, and just doing things at the drop of a hat. Enjoy all of that because it does change somewhat when you're married. Not that you can't do that, but you just have different priorities and different responsibilities sometimes. So yeah, work on you.
Okay, brilliant. So, what would you say to that young lady watching this video who is in that place where she feels like it's too late for me? I don't see any prospects. God knows that I want to get married. Why is he punishing me? you know, what would you say to that young lady just to get her through this season?
um I would say, where have these expectations come from? Because I had to question myself, because I thought that I'd be married. No, I thought that I'd be having children by 25. 25, can you imagine? I look at myself now and think, me with children at 25, no, I'm not ready. So yeah, and I think all of that came from looking at my mum, because she had me when she was 25. So I think sometimes you have to question, like, where does that come from? And obviously that was the norm 35 years ago. Because terms of like careers and doing things weren't the same. I mean, it's still up there. You still had, boss women doing what they're doing, um, but it's not the same as it is now. And I think now we have more of a what's the word? More of a focus on maybe wanting to achieve all of the goals that we have set personally for ourselves. So I'd just say, you know what, where you are is where you're meant to be. Um, do all of the things that you wanted to do. Question where these expectations have come from, because sometimes they're put on us by other people, especially by like media. When I say media, I mean like films, and TV programs, because everyone's having children ridiculously young and whatever. But it's like, is that really for you? Like, honestly, question it. Be like, is that really for me? Or do I want to achieve X, Y, and Z first and then have my family, or and then get married? So I'd say, you know what, don't feel bad. Where you're at is where you're meant to be, and just enjoy it, like live in the moment. I feel that in this generation we're so quick to want to capture everything, um, on our phones, on our videos, that we just miss it. Like, we miss the moment. And yeah, I know sometimes it's nice to look back on pictures and videos and be like, oh, do you remember this? But it's also just nice to just be in it. And I realized that I was doing something the other day, and I was like, "Oh, guys, quick, take a picture." And my friend was like, "Just be in the moment," and I was like, "Actually, that's so true. Let's just enjoy it for what it is. We have that memory; we can go back to it." But yeah, just be in the moment, be in the present. Don't try to capture everything for a highlight, or for a snapshot. Um, so yeah, just be present, be in the moment, do what it is that you feel that you need to do, that you've been called to do, that you want to do. Travel, eat the biscuit, buy the shoes, buy the handbag.
I did.
Like, do all do all the things that you want to do. Go to those crazy bougie restaurants with your girls, or by yourself, with your
Mm,
cousins, with your aunt, with your mum. I remember taking my mum to this amazing restaurant. Can I say its name?
maybe not.
Okay,
I don't
so
know.
it's this amazing Michelin starred restaurant, and it was when I was contracting, and contracting is great. Yeah, contract, guys, contract. I was contracting, and contracting is great. You get paid really well for it, and so I was like, you know what, I really want to treat my mum. And so I took her to this amazing restaurant. We had was it like a 5 or 7 course menu, and we sat at the chef's table. And then, I know, right? And then there was this like gardening experience, because my mum was gardening. And so they took us around the grounds of this restaurant, and they've got like deer, and they've got all these fruit trees. And so they were showing us how to prune fruit trees. They showed us how to plant bulbs for the spring, and to this day she's still got the basket with the bulbs in. She's
Oh,
so cute. um and it was an amazing experience. And yeah, I look back on that and I just think I absolutely loved it. So it's like, do all of those things. You know, the things you're like, oh, I really want to skydive, do it. Like,
Yeah.
what's holding you back? Just go do it. Oh, I really
Mhm.
want to go and eat in this amazing restaurant, do it. I really want to stay in this amazing hotel, do it. It then gives you something to talk about in your marriage. Like, no, honestly, it does. And it gives you something to gauge your potential partner against. Because if you're like, oh, I want to go to this Michelin star restaurant, and he's like, oh, I want to go to this burger joint, you're like, okay, burgers are cool, but not all the time. Like,
Mm.
I like a burger like anybody else, but I also like bouge. So let's mix it up a little bit. Burgers and bouge.
No, I do. I think that's so important. Last year, 2019, unfortunately, one of my closest friends passed away, and she was only 35 years old. But one of the things that has really stuck with me is that even at the funeral, everybody that spoke said how much this young lady lived her life,
Mm,
even though she left Earth at what we determine to be prematurely or too young. In those 35 years, she lived every single moment. And for me, I would say she's probably the only person I've ever met who has lived that way,
mm,
lived life to the full, like all the time. And I just think in our seasons, wherever we find ourselves, but we're talking about being in that single season. Why don't we make the most of it? Because unfortunately, we don't know what tomorrow holds. We don't know how long we've got left. And I just think it's such a shame that God has sent you here for a reason. Jesus promises us abundant life. And I don't believe that that abundant life only pertains to life in heaven.
mm,
I think he wants us to have abundant life here on earth as well. But if we
mm,
constantly live our life waiting for that big milestone, waiting for the husband, waiting for the kids, waiting for the dream job, waiting for the dream house, waiting for the dream car, we can come up with so many excuses that we literally are putting our life on hold. And I think for me, when I go back to the Father, I want to be able to say, Lord, I lived it. And I think with what you're saying, it's so important that wherever we are in this single season, live, do it all, do whatever you want to do because life is so unpredictable.
it really is. And you'd be amazed the people that you meet on that journey as
Mm,
well when you're just
yeah.
doing you and just enjoying yourself. Like, you meet amazing people and then you look
Mm.
back and you think, oh wow. And who knows, you might even meet your spouse whilst
There
you're
you go.
out there doing what you're doing. And I
Being
remember
findable.
see, being findable. I remember I used to go to like different events, like if we were good to go to a Christian event or like going out to a restaurant or something. And in the back of my mind, I'd be like, "Ooh, maybe I'm my husband." But you see, God knew because He was like, "No, he at church. Go church."
And I think that's such a beautiful story, that you met in church. Obviously, everyone's got their own different stories, but I think it kind of solidifies that foundation, that you
Yeah.
were found in the presence of the Lord. So, oh, I like that. Maybe you should write a book, Being Found in the Presence of the Lord. No? Okay. Okay, so just before we go though, you and your husband, I would say, from the outside looking in, you have a great marriage, you have a great household, and one of the things I love about you and your husband, you're very business driven, and I know that you have a few different businesses that you've got on the go. But you are about to release probably one of your biggest businesses yet, I would say. Um,
Yeah.
and I'm really excited for you. I'm so proud of you guys. And I know that by the grace of God, this business is going to do extremely well. But we couldn't end this segment without you telling us a little bit more about it. So it has been going along the bottom of the screen for those eagle eyed among you. But Natalie, could you just tell us a little bit more about your new business venture?
Of course. So we're really excited because it's about to launch and it's a book, well, it's an app, and it's called Inspirable. And basically, it's a digital platform where we encourage and support children in reading. And basically, it's a reading app for children from the ages of 2 to 12. And it just incorporates technology with reading. It's going to be great. Have a look down here. Have a look and find us on social media platforms. You can find us under Inspirable Books on Instagram and on Facebook, or you can visit our website at www.inspirable.io. Yeah, so go and check it out and have a look. And there's some interesting things happening over on the website. So have a look, and yeah, we'll contact you. and give you more information as and when it's coming. But it's coming really soon, really
Will that be
soon.
launched in 2020, do you think?
Yeah, it's this year. It's like we're at the precipice. It's coming. It's coming. But honestly, we're so excited. We've got so much going on with it. Um, but yeah, it's going to be really good and really good at helping children to engage with literature. The purpose of it is to you can create an avatar of your child, and then they are the main protagonist through the story. And these stories that are lifelike, because basically I work with children, as you know, and I remember being in schools and being in the library with children, and they'd bring me a book and be like, miss, can you read me this? I was like, okay. So it was a book about maybe wanting to become an astronaut, and the book itself was good, the content was good, but it was really factual and not really that engaging. So I'm like on
Mm,
page 3 and I'm struggling to keep these children's attention. I'm like, oh look, and then he went to the moon and he did this, and they're like, okay, yeah, that's great, can we read another story now? And
mm,
it made me think, like, why are these books not so engaging? I mean, it's important, children need to know how it is that they can aspire to be anything,
mm,
but let them know how to do it in a fun and entertaining way, but also in a really educational way. So if you actually want to become an astronaut, it gives you the steps.
yeah.
Follow the STEM project. It gives you the steps that you need to take. So that was some of the reasons behind the app actually coming out. And my husband is a technology genius, so he was like, yeah, we can make it on an app. And I was like, okay, you can do that bit. So yeah, it's exciting and it will be coming soon, so keep your eyes peeled.
That's great. And I think that's such a beautiful partnership that, you are partners in life, you're partners in marriage, but you're also partners in business. And God would so have it, you spoke at the beginning of this video, how much you love children, working with children, that's your passion. And God would so have it that He gave you this vision to create something to help children and to be of service to children and their families. And then also gave you this amazing husband who could put it together, make it
Facilitate it.
happen.
Honestly,
Yeah.
it's amazing. It really is amazing, and it's amazing as well because I've had this degree for I don't know how many years, since 2007. I graduated, and sometimes you get a degree in a subject and then you go into a job and you're not necessarily always using your degree. And
Mm-hmm.
there was a time I was like, okay, how am I going to do this? And the Lord said to me to step out in faith. So I was like, okay, as we do. I'm like, are you sure? And he was just like, step out in faith. And so I opened a nannying agency,
Mhm,
and it just flew. It went crazy. And I was making more money doing that than I was contracting. And anyone who's been contracting knows that you get paid very well. And that
mhm,
was one of the things that had held me, because I made a contract, which is a temporary job. I made it a
mhm.
very permanent situation because I was contracting for maybe like 5, 6 years, and it was
Wow.
meant to be just a year. Um, but you kind of get used to stuff and you get comfortable. And God was like, no, I'm calling you out of your comfortable place. And then yeah, pushed me into nannying and having the agency, and I met so many amazing people. Um, and just nannying in general is amazing because you get to do all these things with children and then give them back, and then like learn what it is that you would implement in your family or what you wouldn't implement in your family, the things that work, the things that don't work. It's
Mhm.
brilliant. I love it. I
Yeah.
absolutely love it still to this day. And it's just helped so much with the app, and just
Mm,
with generally just with parenting and lifestyle and stuff. So
mm.
yes, I just thank God for encouraging me to step out in faith, and here
Yeah.
we go.
And
Here it is.
every step of faith that we take leads to something else and something else. And God needed you to take that step of faith so that you could now branch off into this much bigger thing, which I think is
Right.
great. So congratulations, girl.
Thank you
I know
so
it's going
much.
to be amazing. And maybe one day we can have both you and your husband doing an interview about, working together as a married couple, and having a vision, because that's one thing that I have learned from you and your husband from the outside looking in. Is that your marriage has a vision, and I think that's so important that you are working together, and that you kind of have a map of where you want this to go and your plan and your vision for your future. And I think that's so important because as women, like we said earlier, we like to know where we're going, what's going on. And I've, watched you and your husband, how you have that vision, and everything you say you're going to do is just like tick, 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 tick. You're doing it, which I think is amazing and very inspiring. So yeah, we'll see what the future holds with that. But congratulations on your new business. And if anybody's interested in learning more about that, if you're a parent, you definitely need to get this app. Details are on the screen. I'll also put them in the description of this video. Thank you so much, Natalie. It's been an absolute pleasure having you on today. I'll put all of your details. You're welcome. I'll put all of the details in the description of this video. Thank you so much for watching, guys. If you haven't already subscribed, remember to subscribe to Dual Purpose, as we'll be having a lot more of these types of interviews. So thank you.